They said Caitlin Clark would face tough competition, but nobody warned her the real threat would come from the referees. Missed calls, unfair technicals, and brutal hits with no protection. It's not just bad officiating anymore, it looks personal. And once you see how deep this bias runs, you'll never watch a WNBA game the same way again.
Doesn't get the call.
And all of a sudden, we're pretty close. This has been as close as it's been all second quarter long.
Something isn't adding up when it comes to Caitlin Clark's rookie season. Game after game, the pattern is impossible to ignore: missed calls, questionable technicals, and an eerie silence from the officials when it matters most. Fans aren't just frustrated, they're convinced there's a deeper bias at play, and the evidence is stacking up fast. It started small. A no call here, a little extra contact there. But as Clark's star power grew, so did the suspicious officiating. Whether it's getting slammed in the face or bulldozed to the ground, Clark often finds herself on the wrong end of physical plays, with the referees looking the other way. Meanwhile, minor frustrations, like tapping the backboard, are blown out of proportion with lightning-fast technical. It's almost like someone wants to send a message, and it's not subtle. And it's not just the fans who see it. Analysts, former players, even coaches have begun speaking out. The silence after brutal hits and the whistle-happy punishments for trivial reactions aren't isolated incidents. They're forming a dangerous pattern that points to something more than just rookie treatment. It's starting to look like Clark is being targeted, not just by defenders, but by the very people who are supposed to protect the game's integrity. Every missed call isn't just unfair, it's a risk to player safety. When obvious fouls get ignored, it opens the door to reckless, dangerous plays that could end someone's season, or worse. Yet, time and time again, Clark is left to fend for herself, while referees shrug off brutal collisions like they're just part of the show. And here's the twisted part: when Clark stands up for herself, she's the one punished. It's almost laughable, if it weren't so blatantly rigged. The real question is, why? Is it jealousy over the attention she brings? Is it resentment toward the fan base she's reigniting? Or is it a coordinated effort to humble the league's brightest new star? Whatever the reason, it's becoming crystal clear. Caitlin Clark isn't just battling defenders, she's battling a broken system stacked against her. And if the WNBA doesn't step in soon, the damage to its credibility might be impossible to repair. When a league's brightest star takes a brutal shot to the face and the referees act like it never happened, you know something is seriously wrong. In a high-stakes playoff game against the Connecticut Sun, Caitlin Clark suffered a vicious blow to the eye from Dejonae Carrington. Fans in the arena gasped, expecting an immediate whistle, but what they got instead was silence. No foul, no stoppage, nothing. Clark blinked through the pain, trying to shake off the clear damage. A bruise formed under her eye almost instantly, yet the officials turned away as if they hadn't seen a thing. Spectators erupted in outrage, social media exploded, and even seasoned analysts were stunned. How could something so obvious be ignored on the biggest stage? It wasn't just a missed call, it felt like a deliberate message that Clark wasn't going to get the same protection others took for granted. And the impact on her game was immediate. Clark's rhythm was shattered, her shots were off, and the spark fans counted on seemed dimmed for the first time all season. Shooting an uncharacteristic 149 in the first half, it was clear she wasn't just fighting her opponent, she was battling the aftereffects of a hit that never should have been allowed to happen. The referees didn't just ignore a foul, they changed the entire flow of the game, and maybe even the series. The controversy only deepened as replays circulated online, showing Carrington's clear contact with Clark's face. Fans demanded accountability, calling it one of the worst missed calls they'd ever witnessed. And still, the WNBA said nothing. No apology, no correction, no concern. It was a slap in the face not just to Clark, but to anyone who believed fairness still mattered in professional sports. The most disturbing part? This wasn't some isolated incident. It was just the start of a much bigger pattern that would leave fans wondering, was Caitlin Clark being targeted by the league that should have been protecting her? And what happened next would only add fuel to that fire. But if you thought ignoring a brutal eye injury was bad enough, what happened in the next game made it clear, this wasn't just bad luck anymore. It was open season on Caitlin Clark. At some point, tough defense crosses a line, and in Caitlin Clark's case, that line has been stomped over again and again. Game after game, she's shoved, hit, grabbed, and body-checked with barely a whistle blown. It's not just rough basketball anymore, it's open season on the WNBA's biggest rising star, and the league's officials are letting it happen. Clark doesn't get the normal calls you'd expect for any other player, rookie, or veteran. She takes elbows to the chest, shoulders to the back, and arms hooked around her waist, all without a shred of protection from the people paid to keep the game fair. Meanwhile, every shove, every hit, and every sneaky cheap shot she absorbs stacks up, slowly breaking down the very athletes the WNBA claims to be building up. If this is what letting them play looks like, it's a total embarrassment. And the worst part? It's not even subtle. Commentators call it out in real time. Fans flood social media with slow-motion replays of the hits. Opposing players practically dare the officials to call something, and still, the whistles stay silent. It's like there's an unwritten rule when it comes to Caitlin Clark: if you rough her up, you'll get away with it. This isn't just bad officiating anymore, it's dangerous. The more the referees let it slide, the more reckless players become, testing how far they can go without consequences. And every time Clark picks herself up off the floor without a call, it sends a clear, ugly message. Some players are expendable, no matter how much they mean to the future of the league. But that wasn't the whole story, because the way Clark's own passion has been weaponized against her, that's even worse. And what happened next would leave fans shaking their heads in disbelief.
One-on-one, Sammy Whitcomb with 8 seconds left. Goes around to Gumake, drives baseline, and shot rejected by Izzy McMagor. Second opportunity is up and in by Nalissa Smith. Very entertaining first half about Seattle, and all of a sudden, we're pretty close. This has been as close as it's been all second quarter long, 44-2.
If you thought the refs ignoring brutal hits was bad, wait until you see how they punished Clark for simply showing emotion. It's almost like they were just waiting for any excuse to take her down. When Alyssa Thomas barreled through Caitlin Clark like a runaway freight train, everyone watching knew it wasn't just a hard foul, it was a reckless hit. In a packed arena filled with playoff tension, Thomas charged straight into Clark, knocking her off her feet in a brutal collision that left fans stunned. It was the kind of impact that should have triggered an immediate flagrant call without question. Instead, the officials casually slapped it with a common foul and moved on like nothing serious had happened. The crowd wasn't buying it. You could hear the gasps, the anger, the confusion. On social media, it exploded even louder. Fans, analysts, and even former players lit up every platform, calling out the obvious. "That wasn't basketball," one furious tweet read. "That was a cheap shot disguised as defense." And yet, the referees treated it like a simple bump in the paint. No review, no flagrant, no accountability. And here's the real kicker: if the roles had been reversed, if Clark had thrown that shoulder. But that wasn't even the most insulting part, because when Caitlin dared to show even a flicker of frustration later that night, she didn't just get punished, she got humiliated in front of everyone. And just when you thought the double standard couldn't get any more obvious, Caitlin was slapped with a technical foul, not for a cheap shot, not for trash talk, but for something so minor it left fans in absolute disbelief. When players throw elbows and shove opponents with no consequences, you'd think the refs were letting everything slide. But not when it comes to Caitlin Clark. In one of the most embarrassing moments of the season, Clark lightly tapped the backboard after missing a shot, only to be immediately slapped with a technical foul. Let that sink in. No violence, no trash talk, no confrontation. Just a simple, harmless hit out of frustration, and somehow the referees decided it was a disrespect to the game. Meanwhile, players who practically body-checked Clark earlier that night, they walked away with nothing, not even a warning. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing. The crowd, already tense from the constant physical abuse Clark had been taking, erupted into furious boos. Social media caught fire within seconds. Commentators tried to spin it as emotions running high, but everyone knew the truth. This wasn't about emotions. This was about officials looking for any excuse to penalize Clark, even when she barely did anything wrong. It was a blatant double standard, plain and simple. Players around the league get away with far worse without so much as a glance from the refs. But Clark, one flick at the backboard, and she's suddenly public enemy number one. It wasn't just unfair, it was calculated. A move designed to keep her in check while others were allowed to play as dirty as they pleased. But even after being humiliated like that, Clark refused to fold. She didn't whine. She didn't beg. She went right back to work, and what she did next silenced every critic in the building. And instead of letting the refs break her spirit, Caitlin Clark flipped the script, turning their cheap call into pure fuel for one of her most dominant performances yet. At some point, you have to ask, how many dangerous hits can one player take before someone finally steps in? During a heated game against the Las Vegas Aces, Caitlin Clark took yet another brutal shot, this time straight to the face from Jackie Young. It wasn't a brush. It wasn't incidental. It was a clear, heavy hit that sent Clark stumbling backward while fans across the arena held their breath. And what did the officials do? Barely anything. They gave out a common foul like it was some harmless little bump, brushing off a direct shot to the face as just normal contact. Meanwhile, Clark stood there, clearly shaken, trying to gather herself while the refs made it obvious they weren't interested in protecting her. Again, the outrage was immediate. Fans booed so loud the building shook. Social media blew up with slow-motion replays showing the full force of Young's arm connecting with Clark's face. Analysts couldn't believe it either, calling out the inconsistency and questioning how such a dangerous play could be treated like it was no big deal. But for Caitlin Clark, it was just another hit to add to the growing list of abuse she's expected to tough out with no backup. And let's be real, if the refs continue letting this happen, it's not a question of if someone gets seriously hurt, it's when. Clark isn't just battling opponents at this point. She's battling a broken system that keeps putting her in harm's way while pretending everything's fine. But that wasn't the final insult, because what happened in the next game showed that the WNBA's so-called protection for its stars was nothing more than a bad joke, and Clark would pay the price once again. When it comes to Caitlin Clark, even the most obvious fouls are treated like they never happened. At some point, you have to wonder, what exactly are the referees even watching? Game after game, Caitlin Clark drives to the basket, takes heavy contact, and somehow, the whistles stay silent. Against teams like the Seattle Storm and Washington Mystics, the hits weren't minor. They were brutal, obvious, and right in front of everyone's eyes. Yet time and time again, no foul was called. In Seattle, Clark attacked the rim, got slammed mid-air, and crashed to the floor. No call. No hesitation from the refs to wave it off like it never happened. Against the Mystics, it was the same nightmare. Clark went strong to the basket, got hammered across the arms, and still no whistle. Meanwhile, the fans in the stands, and even the announcers, could barely hide their disbelief. It didn't just look bad. It looked rigged. Coaches weren't staying quiet either. Fever head coach Christy Sides finally said what everyone else was thinking, practically begging for the league to get better with officiating. She wasn't asking for favoritism, she was asking for fairness, for the basic protection every player deserves. And still, nothing changed. It's becoming crystal clear. Clark isn't getting rookie treatment. She's getting targeted, and the officials are helping it happen by pretending not to see it. Every missed call chips away at the integrity of the game. Every ignored hit sends the same ugly message. Caitlin Clark is fair game, and don't expect the refs to step in and stop it. But that wasn't where the madness ended, because the league's refusal to protect its biggest young star would soon lead to something even more dangerous, and the consequences could no longer be ignored. By now, it's clear the issue with Caitlin Clark isn't just about missed calls, it's about something much bigger. Every shove ignored, every cheap shot overlooked, every technical handed out for nothing, points to a league that's playing a dangerous game with its future. The WNBA isn't just failing one player. It's putting its entire reputation on the line. Player protection isn't optional, it's the foundation of any real professional league. If fans start believing that bias decides who gets hurt and who gets protected, the damage to the WNBA's credibility will be permanent. And right now, it's hard not to believe that when it comes to Caitlin Clark, fair treatment doesn't exist. It's not just casual fans noticing it either. Analysts, retired players, and even mainstream sports media are starting to call it out. Headlines questioning whether the WNBA is sabotaging its own biggest star are popping up everywhere. Sponsors, investors, and casual viewers, the very people the league needs to grow, are watching closely. And the ugly truth is, they don't stick around when they smell corruption. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's a phenomenon. She's bringing in new fans, packing arenas, and putting national attention on women's basketball like never before. But if the league allows her to be battered, disrespected, and treated like an afterthought, they're not just hurting her, they're destroying everything they've built. But that's not the end of the story, because the real question now is, can the WNBA fix this before it's too late, or is the damage already done? One thing's for sure, fans are watching, and they won't forget how the league handled its biggest star. Whether the WNBA steps up or keeps looking the other way could define its future for years to come. If you're as fired up about this as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started exposing the truth. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.